I'm just going to wait another couple of minutes for Right. Good evening, everybody. I thought we'd just hang on a few minutes, get everybody here. So, very nice to see you all, members of the committee, those of you in the audience, and anybody watching on the Council's YouTube channel. Welcome to this meeting of Local Plan Subcommittee, 6th of October, which is looking at, once again, at large-scale strategic sites. Apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Parker, who's being substituted by Councillor Schweer, Councillor Ritchie, substituted by Councillor Holland, and Councillor Walsh, who is being substituted by Councillor Hooks, who's becoming a fixture at these meetings now. It's very nice to see you. Right, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. We don't have the minutes available for the last couple of meetings, so they will come forward, I think, probably next week. Just see how much time governance have to do to pull them together. So we move on. Public question time.
Declarations of interest.
Oh, sorry, declarations of interest. How have I managed to miss that? Right, declarations of interest. To declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest or other registrable interest relating to items on the agenda, having regard to the Code of Conduct for members and having taken appropriate advice where necessary. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Non-registrable interest in item 5, land north of West Street, Coggleshaw. Speaker Chris Crisoni is known to me, but we have not discussed the issue, and I intend to stay and vote. And on the same agenda item, King's Dean at North Kelvedon. Speakers Councillors Staines and Thorogood are known to me, but I have not discussed the issues with them, and I intend to stay and vote.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Abbott?
King's Dean, because it comes into Rivenhall Parish. The Parish Council have submitted representation about the local plan sites, but I wasn't in the room. In fact, I wasn't in the building when they were discussed, and had no part in the drawing up of that representation. And also, same as Councillor Butland, 2 district councillor colleagues are speaking tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you very much. And presumably we can do the en bloc that we know the 2 district
Yes,
councillors. And also non-registered interest item 5, same as Councillor Butland, Mr Criscione is known to me, but I haven't discussed anything and will remain in the meeting and participate in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think there's some things on here that mention Whittam. So as I go down the agenda, I will make a note of them. Is that okay?
Fine. Yes, fine. Thank you.
If necessary, I'll leave the room.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor Schwer?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just to do with the en bloc with regards to the other 2 councillors. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I will declare a joint interest on behalf of all of us for Councillor Staines, who is known to all of us and is speaking this evening, and Councillor Thorogood, also known to us all as a district council colleague. I think it's just those 2, right? Anyone else? No? Okay, fine. Thank you. Public question time. So, first of all, something from me. I have received a considerable number of emails about the King's Dean sites, over 30, in fact. I responded just acknowledging some of them up until about 1 o'clock today, and then I've had to stop because I've had other things to do. So, if you sent me one of those emails after about 1 o'clock today and didn't get an acknowledgement, my apologies, but I literally ran out of time, and I say that the number is 30 and rising. With regards to speakers and the agenda, I'm going to move things around a little bit. So we're going to start with recommendation 4, which is Coggeshall 2087, because I have 2 speakers on that. Then we will move to recommendations 8 to 13 inclusive. That's all the Kelvedon sites where I have the majority of speakers. We'll then jump down to recommendation 17, which is site Silver End 2278, because I have a speaker on that item. And then we'll go back to the top of the agenda. So I hope that's all right with everyone. Just means we get people speaking all at the start and nobody has to sit and wait right to the end. Okay, so let's start on the first agenda item. And I have a speaker on this. This is item Coggeshall 2087, land north of West Street. And the first speaker is Mr. Bradley Bennett. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Bennett. Everybody has 3 minutes. I'm going to be fairly strict on that because we have got quite a lot of speakers tonight. I won't cut you off mid-sentence, yep. But... I've got to try once, so hopefully that works. Okay. So sorry, if you could just put your microphone, that's it. It should be. Yep, there we go.
It's red. Okay. Well, firstly, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. For reference, I'm a Chartered Building Services Engineer with CIBSE, with specialism in mechanical and electrical building related works. I have specific experience in utility connection and buried services. I am a resident within Coggeshall. I raised concern with the issue with the proposed development of 600 dwellings. I've been corrected, 500 potentially. To cite COG 2087, a report was issued prior to this meeting in the previous consultation phase to provide detail as to why a development on this site would not be suitable at the moment. I can provide a copy of this report to you upon request should you not have this. For reasons stated factually within the report, the proposal to create a new main road stretching from Robinsbridge through Ambridge Road out to the A120 would not be feasible due to the current size and congestion of Robinsbridge Road. Ambridge Road is currently not a road but a footpath through the field. it would mean creating another main road into the village from an already extremely busy A120. This would result in increased noise, air and traffic pollution, as well as risk to families and children who utilise the public footpath along these fields at the bottom of Robins Ridge Road, which is purely a residential road. It is not wide enough to create 2 lanes to allow simultaneous traffic with the proximity of existing dwellings adjacent to the road. The land proposed for development is an active farmland for which there is evidence of recent harvesting. There are large-scale wildlife dwellings such as hare, muntjac and many protected birds within these fields. Destruction of this resource would impact the local community with a loss of available work as well as a central local resource with it being an active farmland. Large-scale civil trenching works would be required to this site to facilitate new incoming utility connections for which there are no immediate local provisions to accept such a demand. This means the complete destruction of this current wildlife habitat as well as large-scale disruption for surrounding existing dwellings. Trench works would be required to provide new incoming LV power connections for which existing connection routes I cannot locate with the assumption of a large-scale disruption to the A120. The village of Coggeshall has experienced significant increase in population, size and dwellings, accounting to in excess of 33% in recent years, with a new development now underway to add further strain to both primary and secondary schools which are at full capacity as well as a small doctor's surgery. The local existing infrastructure cannot support an increase of such size. It is reasonable to assume that construction of 600 new dwellings would result in a minimum of 2,400 new residents with an average of 4 per household. I would point the consultation board towards a previous attempt to develop on this site for which a planning decision went to the Court of Appeal, which was denied. Having followed this process previously with clear guidance as to why it was denied, it would not make sense to try and go through this process again, as the same still applies. I would also point out that the widening of the A12 has been cancelled. The A120 is already extremely busy, with many recent fatalities occurring due to increased traffic on this road. So further reasons as to why this would not be a good proposal are clear. Should the village need to accept further dwellings, it would make more sense to complete this closer to large-scale current developments, such as Bovis, COG 2084, for which there is existing utility connections, proximity to an existing main road to facilitate increased traffic as well as available land. Welcome any questions the board may have related to this statement, as well as my experience and credentials in this field, for which I will happily respond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Bennett. The next speaker I have on the same site is Chris Crescione, who is the agent.
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
Good evening, members. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. As a councillor not so far from here and sitting on a local plan committee like this, I know what you're going through. I know it's difficult, not easy decisions that you're making. Commend to the officers as well, the work that they're putting in. I'd just like to talk about Coggeshall and our proposals for Coggeshall. At the end of this, I'm going to ask, rather strangely, I mean, I would love you to allocate our site in a heartbeat, but actually I'm going to ask you to defer our proposal. And the reason I want you to do that is to give proper consideration, in light of recent decisions that you've made at this committee in the last week or so, to consider sufficient scale to deliver community infrastructure in Coggeshall. Possible health, GP, education and community uses, all of which we could provide. Again, this is down to dialogue. The preservation and enhancement of heritage assets in the local area as well, and being a sustainable place close to the A120. So I'm requesting you defer your decision on whether to allocate this to bear those considerations in mind as you go forward. We're looking here at a really good opportunity. Delivering small-scale development is clearly a requirement of the NPPF, but of course with that there's the risk that you don't get the infrastructure that people want and deserve. At Coggeshall we believe we can deliver that infrastructure, but we can also deliver over 60% of the site as open space as well. So low density, publicly accessible, open green space adjacent to existing services. This is what we live for, right? The scheme does have capacity for about 600 homes, but it could of course include bungalows. It could of course include specialist housing as well. So there's a huge opportunity we feel that needs to be taken very seriously, particularly now, as of last week, having effectively rejected Andrewsfield. Going to have to come up with other numbers, and we feel that this is a good addition to what's already being provided. So the site itself is a good one. It is vastly different from that you saw as part of that planning application some time ago, and of course of the unsuccessful appeal. We're in a different world now with a different proposal. And that includes treating heritage and landscape with the importance and significance that it deserves. Of course, I should tell you that we did that the last time when it went to planning appeal, but of course this is a vastly different proposal now, and one that we feel has merit. So let's not miss out on a great opportunity. I have to commend you on the transparency of this process, but of course it is risky because you're going to say things about sites, but then you may find yourself having to find the numbers from the sites you've already badmouthed or poo-pooed. So in that sense, giving this serious thought alongside the existing Coggeshall sites as well. I appreciate why you've separated smaller size sites and the larger strategic sites, but in actual fact, you're going to have to consider them together as we move forward. So I shall finish there. I do hope that you're able to defer this for some further thought. Thank you, Chairman and members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crucione. Thank you. Right, that ends the speakers on that item. So we've moved to the presentation. Alan, are you starting with this?
Yes,
one?
I am.
Right,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that technology worked first time. Excellent. Right, thank you very much. So this site is COG 2087, land north of West Street, Coggeshall. Approximately 62 hectares. It could accommodate around about 600 dwellings. Other parts of this proposal include things for pedestrian cycle bridges over the A120, landscaping, approximately 60% public open green space, and also that landscaping is intended to help protect local heritage. The site was an appeal site previously. However, that appeal was dismissed in 2017. I think primarily it was dismissed on heritage grounds and impact. There's two main clusters of heritage assets, one in the middle of the site. Apologies. Sorry. Apologies. I have to stand up. Sorry, members forgot this laser pointer doesn't work very well. So first cluster in the middle here, and there's another cluster of listed buildings down the bottom of the site there. So they would be sort of a key consideration moving forward. So Coggeshall is a key service village. It does have a range of services available. However, there is some potential heritage harm on this site. But landscape sensitivity isn't doing too badly in terms of the latest evidence base we've had produced. So the site is not recommended for allocation as per recommendation form page 20, primarily due to the heritage concern. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Alan. Okay, members, who would like to start? Anyone? Someone? Oh, sorry, Councillor Abbott.
With a question, if I may, Madam Chairman, how many houses was the appeal refusal for?
So the appeal is 15-01271. This was for 9.4 hectares, residential development, including 8 self-build, 0.5 hectares of employment land, 9 hectares of community woodland, 6 hectares of green space. So, fortunately, the report doesn't seem to mention the actual figure there, presumably because it was an outline application. So 9, just say 3. Yeah, just doing some quick maths in my head, and apologies if I get it wrong, but approximately.
I'm going to just allow.
Yes, 100.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Approximately, yeah, 100. I'll defer to that. That's fine.
Okay.
Nearly got there.
Yep.
There. So apologies.
Okay, fine. Right. Members. Right. Somebody would like to comment? We've had 2 interesting comments from speakers. 2 speakers. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. it's a bit difficult because we're dealing with all these sites in isolation, and at some stage I think we're going to have to do a helicopter view of all our decisions. I was somewhat persuaded by the speaker's view that you know, it might be worth deferring this to see where we are on the number of houses. To me, you know, it does fit in there. How many houses I think would be, you know, absolutely crucial on that. So personally, I would not be against deferring that to give us a little headway if we need it. We might not need it, but if we did need it, there will be some smaller sites that we would need to take account of.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Button. I think that's a not unreasonable argument. Councillor Coleridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comment really is from the first speaker that the village of Coggeshall has already taken quite a significant volume of houses in the past, as have many villages and towns in the district. But this is quite an extensive extension to the village, and it would put quite a significant strain on the local infrastructure. So I'm sort of more inclined, I think, to agree with the officer's recommendations on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Schreer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very much leaning towards the comments that was made in public speaker time, the last one, with regards to the deferment, because I think some important points were made. So I sort of slightly find myself in consideration of this site in agreement with Councillor Butland that actually what is really important here is going to be the tipping point. Would this deliver some of that infrastructure? Would it help primary schools? Would it deliver doctor's surgery? Would it deliver the dentists? Would it deliver the open spaces that I think we need? I think we can see from the overall plan of Coggeshall as a key service village that this is actually quite indicative, and its location is there, and it's been agreed as a key service village. But I think the important thing here is, would this development actually help deliver, because of all the numbers and the data, the infrastructure that has been mentioned? And I think that's the important thing. If it's a straight housing allocation on numbers alone, then I think that's a lot more dubious. But I think if this is the tipping point to deliver infrastructure, that is the case, and I will be happy to move deferment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schreer. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you for that. I think it's an interesting proposition that's been put on the table. I mean, I would be broadly supportive of that approach too. I think, whilst I appreciate full traffic modelling might not be able to be done in the period of a deferment, I think some sort of transport and traffic assessment, I'm acutely aware of local concerns in that particular vicinity, that particular part of Coggeshall, regarding speeding traffic and everything else. So some form of county council highways assessment of the current road and potential capacity, I think, would be useful, even if we don't get the full traffic modelling.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Cunningham. And we did defer a strategic site last week for similar reasons, so yeah, okay. Right, if nobody else wants to speak, so Councillor Schreer has moved that we, oh sorry, Councillor Bowers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Am I quite, because obviously it's quite a substantial site, but under the agenda it says there's no parish council comment specific to this site. Is that, am I reading that right? Is that?
What has
Yeah.
been stated in the report, but
Yeah, there was nothing submitted. Yeah, which is perhaps
Interesting.
surprising, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. Oh, well, all right. So, Councillor Schreer, I think you moved deferral, didn't you? Does that find a seconder? Let's start with that. Councillor Butland. Can I have a show of hands that that is deferred for the moment, please? Thank you. Against deferral? To no abstentions, I don't think. So that is carried, that we defer that pending some further information from Highways and perhaps an overall look at where we are with numbers and so on. Right. Thank you, members. So now I'm going to move on to recommendation 8. We'll start with 8, which is Kelvedon 2207, land south of the A12. this and the subsequent Kelvedon sites, I have quite a lot of speakers on. So we will start with Mr. Rob Snowling, who is the promoter for Pigeon. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
evening.
Chairman and members, for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Rob Snowling. I'm Planning Director for Pigeon. We're a Suffolk-based property company with a track record of delivering high-quality residential and commercial schemes around Essex and the wider eastern region. I'm speaking this evening in respect of land north of the A12 Kelvedon, Kelv 2210, high-quality landscape and design-led sustainable scheme for 400 homes that straddles the administrative boundaries of Braintree District and Colchester City. And Gateway 24, referred to in your agenda pack as land south of the A12, Kelv 2207, a high-quality industrial and logistics park that has the potential to deliver 1,500 jobs across land within both Braintree District and Colchester City. The sites are strategically located on land north and south of the A12 and include land that is proposed for the new Junction 24 at Kelvedon that forms part of the A12 widening scheme. Land north of the A12 is located adjacent to the Fearing strategic growth location, an allocation for 835 homes and community facilities. As such, it provides a logical extension to Kelvedon and committed growth at Fearing. Our proposals will safeguard land required for the new Junction 24 and, if allocated, would deliver part of the A12 widening scheme in the form of the proposed new roundabout on Inworth Road to the south of the A12. Despite government's decision to withdraw funding for the A12 widening scheme, it remains a consented infrastructure scheme that is critical for the future prosperity of North Essex. By allocating land north and south of the A12, the land required for the new Junction 24 will be safeguarded, significantly increasing its prospects for delivery. By allocating the land south of the A12, the Council would be enabling the new junction, effectively priming for delivery of the A12 widening scheme. Gateway 24 has the potential to deliver 1,500 new jobs, providing industrial and logistics space in a strategic location between the Port of Felixstowe and London. In the short term, the site can deliver 150 to 200 jobs by bringing forward light industrial and starter units that will be accessed from the new roundabout on Inworth Road, providing jobs close to committed and existing homes while facilitating part of the approved A12 widening scheme. Land north and south of the A12 are cross-boundary strategic allocation sites that require positive coordination between Braintree and Colchester. Rather than see this as a problem, we would encourage the Council to take a positive approach and maximise the potential social and economic benefits by seeking to accommodate identified demand for logistics space in Braintree District. Given the importance of the A12 widening scheme to the future prosperity of North Essex and their ability to act as a catalyst for significant job creation and strategic infrastructure delivery, we request that members defer their decision on whether to allocate Kelv 2210 and Kelv 2207. Such a deferral will enable officers of the Council to engage positively with Colchester City Council and explore a cross-boundary allocation in the authority's respective local plans, thereby ensuring that the district does not miss out on this significant opportunity to deliver essential infrastructure for North Essex. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snowling. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Ms. Krista Marie Dobson, who wants to speak on Kelvedon 2208 and 2209. Good evening.
Okay. Evening, councillors. I have been involved in the neighbourhood plan and previously as Vice Chair of Fearing Parish Council. More importantly, I'm a third generation of Kelvedon and Fearing who actually cares about the history, the architecture, the countryside and the legacy left behind me. And I can tell you firsthand how these villages and the A12 corridor has changed beyond recognition, from a gentle and calm rural community to one consumed by traffic, noise and pollution. And as a little girl, I would walk safely and willingly from Coggeshall Road in Fearing to Kelvedon Primary School, and I would cycle to my grandmother's florist shop at the other end of Kelvedon High Street on a Saturday and barely see a car before 8:30 in the morning. Sadly, I would not feel safe doing that cycle journey as an adult now, and it certainly wouldn't be enjoyable. It's why the Fearing neighbourhood plan was so focused on active transport. The B1024 and its main junctions, Gorpit Corner, both Coggeshall Road, Fearing and Kelvedon, are hugely congested, with angry and aggressive drivers frustrated by the commute to work or school. The A12, now not to be widened, has an accident most days due to overcapacity, out-of-date and dangerous slip roads, entrances and exits. And the A120 has many of the same issues. Kelvin and Fearing's roads and junctions have become a rat run for those seeking to commute by car and to get from north to south. This new town would add to that problem. With more homes comes more cars, more congestion, more pollution and increased lack of safety. These developments is not sustainable, and by planners' own emissions, the current road infrastructure alone would not be able to cope with the size of the development. Land developer, promoters and planning officers have no understanding or care about what it's really like on the ground for existing residents. They promote their shiny new developments and at the expense of existing settlements, communities and their devalued services, infrastructure and amenities. My understanding is that with other sites allocated, Kings Dean is not required anyway. And as a community, we have already agreed to housing numbers under the 2 local neighbourhood plans. So we're not NIMBYs. There's 900 homes in Fearing alone. It's why the group cause was set up when the Kings Dean first reared its ugly head, and it's why a petition, with some adding money to the cause, is now gaining traction as we speak. 1,300 signatures to date. Both previous and current governments' desire to build an unsubstantiated number of houses is ludicrous, when by all accounts we have thousands, if not millions of homes sitting empty right across the country. In fact, to quote BDC's own publication on its website, empty homes are a national issue, and within the Braintree district there are 2,647 empty homes, 1,016 of which have been empty for over 6 months. Isn't it greener to use and upgrade existing dwellings, even business premises, that instead of paving over paradise, put up a parking lot and thousands of square nondescript boxes that won't necessarily have solar panels, air source heat pumps or any of the other green infrastructure? Who is going to buy these square overpriced boxes anyway? There is a tide turning across the country of ours, and the general public and taxpayers have had enough of not being heard and simply ignored. And I'm asking you, councillors, today, not just to remove this allocation from the local plan, but for the authority to challenge the government's central housing targets. Relying solely on the construction industry to grow our economy is unsound and unsustainable and does not utilise the diverse workforce. Thank you.
Well done, Mr Dobson. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Jonathan Binks on behalf of National Grid, also on Kelvedon 2208 and 2209. Good evening, Mr Binks.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. My name is Jonathan Binks and I'm speaking on behalf of National Grid, which owns and operates the National High Voltage Electricity Transmission Network throughout England and Wales. On the 29th of August 2025, National Grid submitted an application for development consent to the Planning Inspectorate for the Norwich to Tilbury project. The project proposes a new 400 kilovolt electricity transmission connection extending approximately 180 kilometres between the Norwich main substation and New Tilbury North substation via an East Anglia connection node and the Bramford substation. The project is a nationally significant infrastructure project and includes a route through the district of Braintree. Prior to submission, National Grid carried out extensive engagement with planning officers, the public, statutory stakeholders, among others, through multiple consultations from 2022 to 2025. Following the submission of the development consent application, the Planning Inspectorate accepted the application for examination on Friday the 26th of September. The purpose of speaking with the committee today is in relation to the 2 sites that have been recommended for allocation with the Braintree local plan. This includes the 2 sites at Kings Dean, North Kelvedon, which are recommendation 9 and 10 on the committee agenda. Firstly, the larger site proposed for 5,000 homes. The site's northern edge directly overlaps with the planned route for the new transmission line and pylons. Our order limits are intentionally wider at this section to allow for flexibility in the detailed design of the project. This flexibility is crucial in case the proposed mineral extraction site is brought forward, as acknowledged in the committee's report. National Grid has made representations to Essex County Council about the mineral extraction site, highlighting the importance of coordination between these developments. Although National Grid does not object to allocating this site for housing, we ask the committee to acknowledge there is a current conflict between the housing proposal and our infrastructure project. Early acknowledgement and planning for this issue can help ensure that both projects proceed smoothly with minimal disruption to local communities and essential infrastructure. Second, the smaller site for 600 homes does not directly overlap with our route, but the proposed access road subject to the planning application to the north does cross into our order limits. This conflicts with the crossover Belmouth, Hall Road, UK Power Networks diversion works and the scaffolding for stringing of the overhead lines. We believe these issues can be managed with good coordination and phasing, but again we ask the committee to formally note the conflict so it can be addressed early in the planning and construction phases. To conclude, we request the committee acknowledge that both the northern edge of the larger site at Kings Dean and the proposed access road for the smaller site currently conflicts with the Norwich to Tilbury project, though we consider that the housing allocation could be modified through detailed design to reduce the potential conflict. Recognising these conflicts at this early stage is crucial to ensuring the safe and timely delivery of both new homes and the critical national energy infrastructure. National Grid remains committed to engaging constructively with all stakeholders to resolve these issues should both sites be allocated for development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Binks. Thank you. The next speaker is Mr David Murray-Cox, who is speaking on behalf of Parker Strategic Land, also on 2208 and 2209. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I speak on behalf of Parker Strategic Land, the promoters of Kings Dean at Kelvedon, which is Row 9 site. Kings Dean lies on the mainline railway, served by Kelvedon Station, which already has twice hourly services to central London, but which is underutilised and has significant capacity to support sustainable growth. Being between the A12, the A120 and the railway line, we are at the heart of the area this council sees as underpinning its spatial strategy. This is a landscape-led development with 50% of this allocation being green space. Kings Dean represents natural and well-planned growth, sitting within that substantial green ring of accessible, usable green spaces, retaining the separate identity of Kelvedon and nearby settlements, avoiding any or actual perceived coalescence. The vision for Kings Dean will be master planned through an exemplary local stakeholder-led approach. It will be genuinely infrastructure-rich, delivered in appropriate phases to minimise any pressure on existing services. Kings Dean presents a rare planning opportunity, a place which is sustainable now, but which will only become more sustainable over time. This allocation significantly enhances the accessibility of this part of Braintree district through the creation of an enhanced transport hub around the existing railway station, supplemented by a comprehensive public transport system. A key component is the inclusion of a new route from the A12 southwest of Kelvedon to Coggeshall Road, offering an alternative to journeys via the High Street. The county's preferred option for the realigned A120 would have connected to the A12 south of Kelvedon. Kings Dean is not reliant upon that route, but it will be designed to help facilitate the southern components of that road in the event it is to be delivered at some point in the future. Either way, Kings Dean reinforces the strategic business case for significant highways improvements in this area. Kings Dean will provide new educational facilities, both primary schools and a sustainably located new secondary school, to benefit new and existing families alike. This is undeniably about delivering much needed new homes, but the nature of Kings Dean guarantees they will be accompanied by a range of other uses, a significant amount of employment land, schools, sports facilities, local centres and healthcare, for example, so that daily trips are internalised wherever possible and supported by a range of sustainable transport links. It is deliverable, promising new homes early in the plan period, demonstrated by the current application for up to 600 homes, including sheltered housing and a new primary school. Parker Strategic Land is committed to working with the community to ensure Kings Dean is a sustainable addition to the area in the short term and a place for current and future generations to be proud to call their home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Murray-Cox. My next speaker on the same sites is Councillor Bob Palmer from Fearing Parish Council.
Thank you, Chairman. Good
Thank
evening,
you.
members.
Good
and
evening.
thank you for the chance to speak about this proposal. Yeah, anybody who knows Fearing would not, and Kelvedon simply would not recognise that gentleman's, the last speaker's description, but I'll stick to the prepared response we've already submitted. Fearing Parish Council strongly objects to the allocation of these sites for the following reasons. Firstly, potential to overwhelm the existing villages. At 5,000 dwellings, this development is the size that could be classified as a standalone community. However, its location adjacent to a key service village gives the potential for it to have the need to be serviced by the existing community. The infrastructure of Kelvedon and Fearing is already overstretched. A new GP surgery to be built on land north of London Road would be barely large enough for the existing developments in both villages, with no room for expansion. Fearing has no food shops, so residents make use of those in Kelvedon, often using cars due to the distance. Retail outlets are notoriously the last to be provided in new developments, so vehicle movements and congestion would increase as thousands of new residents needed to use all the local amenities before additional ones were provided. The second point in terms of transport links. Whilst it is acknowledged that the rail link is a valuable asset to the villages, the proposal that extra parking be provided to meet additional need is hardly sustainable. Yet the extent of the site would suggest that a considerable number of potential commuters would have to use their cars to access the station, thus putting greater pressure on the existing road links and to the detriment of air quality. The existing junction at Coggeshall Road, Station Road with Kelvedon High Street is a bottleneck, with parking on the southwestern side of Station Road exacerbating the situation further. In the absence of improvements to either the A120 or the A12, there continues to be a large number of commercial vehicles using the High Street. The site is divided by the railway line, which means the new bridge over the line will be needed to allow residents from the southern portion to gain access to the northern, since the southern portion is adjacent to the A12, which will not now be detrunked at that point. Coggeshall Road is narrow, twisty and unsuitable to carry the traffic of a whole new town. Final point in terms of coalescence, the site extends almost to Rivenhall, representing an unacceptable coalescence of two communities with their own individual characters, and contrary to the NPPF and local plan, which both emphasise the importance of green wedges between settlements. And these comments regarding infrastructure relate to 2209 and 2212, as well as 2208. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Palmer. Our next speaker is Councillor Nicky Joshua from Kelvedon Parish Council. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. As Councillor Price said, my name is Nicky Joshua. I'm here tonight representing Kelvedon Parish Council. We strongly oppose the proposals to allocate sites 2208, 2209, 2212, 2217, a third of the parish, within the revised local plan, as we believe that the viability to provide the absolutely necessary road, including rail line bridge, are simply not financially deliverable, along with all the other required infrastructure for development of this size. Kelvedon has a population of just 3,652 and currently 2,085 homes as of last census. This allocation for 5,000 represents a 173% increase. As the planning officer's report quite rightly points out, the development of this size would remove the cherished village status forever. A village known for its historic core, extensive conservation area with 99 listed properties spread along the length of the High Street and surrounding roads. Kelvedon may well have a train station, but not all journeys are by rail. Currently, just two narrow country lanes, one of protected lane status, edged with listed properties and significant lengths of on-street parking, as you've already been told, on both roads, provide links from the proposed sites to the village and its community, the shops, the existing and proposed GP surgery sites, and other village amenities. These roads are also used by residents from Coggeshall and beyond to the west to access the train station and the A12, and from Tiptree to the east. Congestion is a major issue during the morning and evening rush hours. And when an accident happens on the A12, like today, like last week, the week before, last month, the High Street is rammed. Rush hours along the High Street with numerous pinch points, the Fearing Strategic Growth allocation will add to this, along with new developments in Tiptree and Coggeshall themselves. The officer's report states that a new road network, including the rail bridge, will be required in order to deliver the development. But is that viable and deliverable? Mr. David Murray Cox has just stated that the connections, it's not deliverable in the foreseeable future to the A12 because it's not happening. The upgrade of the A12 by National Highways would have removed the many dangerous and suboptimal junctions onto this busy trunk road. These proposals, however, require yet another one to be constructed. How can that possibly be delivered onto a road that is already over capacity? The officer's report fails to acknowledge the setting of the recently renovated Felix Hall, listed as Grade 2, rebuilt since it was near enough razed to the ground by a fire in 1940. This was a significant manorial house with extensive parkland extending into the proposed sites. Its setting and associated remaining buildings deserve to be respected still. Furthermore, the recently reviewed settlement fringe study for the village only covers half of the proposed allocation sites. Other than the sites 2209, 2212 and 2217, closest to the village, classified as medium to low landscape sensitivity, The vast majority of the site, 2208, is classed as medium-high sensitivity. What about the unsurveyed areas? Are they even more sensitive with less capacity to accept new development? Furthermore, there is a high-pressure gas main across the site from roughly northeast to southwest, almost parallel to a railway line, with a significant easement. This would create a disjointed master plan, bisecting the site still further. This
Councillor
site,
Joshua, sorry, would you like to just wrap up? We have got your statement. If you would just like to wrap up with a sentence, that would be appreciated.
That's fine. Elsewhere in the district, urban extensions are being proposed for densities and designs lacking in ambition and forward-thinking. Significant brownfield sites lay unremediated just down the road in Silver End, and houses are empty within the district. Whether 5,000 homes are considered or just 600, the proposals bring substantial impacts which we believe cannot be alleviated by viable infrastructure improvements alone within the site, and we urge you to vote against allocating these sites and instead to reconsider the infrastructure requirements and the approach elsewhere in the urban extensions for more sustainable master plans and design solutions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Our next speaker on this is Councillor Michael Staines, District Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, members.
Thank you, Councillor.
Ahead of GECA, this meeting is one of the last opportunities for local residents and local councillors to participate in local planning meeting and for its decisions to be decided locally to help today's local residents. Why was Kings Dean A12 never included in the previous local plan, as it offered a 5,000 capacity garden community enabled by Essex County Council's favoured A120 option D route? Well, EC's A120 Route D, hyped to unlock the area for houses in 2018, was rejected by National Highways for multiple reasons, and one of those that it would deliver thousands more vehicles a day to Galleys Corner, unable to cope, adding to the woes of locals and through traffic alike. And when, why Colchester paused their local plan review due to the A12 setback in July, a BDC officer is recommending allocating 5,000 houses at Kings Dean A12. Well, if ever approved in future, the A12 widening works would need to be undertaken live on the major route from Chelmsford to Marks Tay and be hugely disruptive on a scale 5 times that we saw at Marks Tay to Colchester widening. And this would significantly reduce the Kings Dean build-out rate, probably undermining viability significantly. Members of this committee have listened and voted decisively to address resident lived experience concerns about Jam Tomorrow infrastructure, and approved only developments where there is a credible plan that will help existing residents' issues and enable some new residents to join them, like Housestead. The stakes at Kings Dean A12 are particularly high for existing residents because of the acute and overstretched pressure on all services and infrastructure in this area, which is already expanding, but without additional services. We've heard from this committee that the planning team cannot force the timely delivery of road improvements, public transport, sufficient affordable housing to attract young families, let alone the schools, doctors, footpaths and open spaces with good air quality that they will need to thrive on arrival, and would also boost the quality of life for existing residents before the others come. On the other hand, we can be assured that approval of Kings Dean, with zero assurances on the A12 or the A120 or a range of essential services, will almost certainly lead to severe and adverse impact to residents in multiple key service villages in this district for years, if not forever. It also seems unbelievable that congestion problems at Galleys Corner could be relieved by adding over 4,000 more houses next door at the deferred Gateway Park A120, so their cars can join the queues there, or at Marks Farm, or at Broad Lane at Straits Mill is built out, or that Gateway Park A120 can be credibly called an urban extension as it's separated from Braintree Town by 4 road lanes. Please continue to vote no thanks to urban sprawl and reject sites with flimsy future infrastructure and service plans or doubtful benefits to existing communities, as this will send a clear and consistent infrastructure first please message from Braintree District Council residents to government and would-be GECA mayoral candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Staines. My final speaker on these sites is Councillor Paul Thorogood, District Councillor. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. I wish to outline why the allocation of the Kings Dean 5,000 homes or the Monks Farm 600 are unsound. The cancellation of the strategic road schemes, the A12 widening and the A120 link from Braintree to Kelvedon South, removes the highway capacity that underpin the Kings Dean proposals. Access to the A12 will be limited to minor local roads, as been discussed by other speakers. These routes cannot accommodate traffic from 5,000 new homes without severe congestion, bottlenecks, safety risks, rat running and poor journey times, which undermines the sustainability and living standards. Without credible mitigation in regards to road infrastructure, the development may not be deliverable. National Grid's proposed Norwich to Tilbury route of high voltage pylons crosses the length of the site and introduces uncertainty over land take, layout and delivery timing. This threatens delays, reduced housing yield and viability. The pylons could also affect desirability and viability of some plots. Blackwater Aggregates is proposing to extend sand and gravel extraction at Monks Farm, a proposed 10-year dig, from the existing neighbouring A7 quarry 2 years into a 12-year dig, overlapping the proposed development if included in Essex County Council's revised minerals plan, which is also at the draft stage. This creates direct land use conflict, housing versus quarrying, risk sterilising mineral reserves and risk loss of housing land, environmental harms, noise, traffic and delays. A national high-pressure gas mains pipeline already traverses the site with a 50 metres wide no-build zone, further restricting layout and capacity. The recommendation does not demonstrate that reasonable alternatives have been fully assessed against the constraints facing Kings Dean and Monks Farm. If Kings Dean or Monks Farm are selected despite these constraints, the plan is to show that reasonable alternative locations were assessed with this criteria and that this site remains preferable. Without a comparative assessment focusing on transport, infrastructure capacity, timing risks, mineral extraction, pylons conflicts and future A120 routes, the choice may not be justified. If alternative sites have fewer constraints, then those might be preferable. The cancellation of strategic roads shows this recommendation depends on infrastructure outside of the Council's control. Also, the pylons and quarrying are proposals controlled by other bodies. Conclusion. If I was sitting here and the A12 improvements and new A120 were going ahead, it would be much harder to oppose Kings Dean and Monks Farm, as they would help provide access to the A12. But these road improvements aren't happening. 400 new homes already have planning permission at London Road, Kelvedon. 850 are in the pipeline for Crown Estates land at Fearing. That's an additional 1,250 homes adding to existing traffic levels, which don't currently exist, through Kelvedon and Fearing without Kings Dean or Monks Farm coming forward. I therefore request you do not allocate Kings Dean or Monks Farm to the draft plan. Whilst Kings Dean would bring with it infrastructure such as a new secondary school to the area, don't think that you'll be doing us a favour by adding the Monks Farm homes instead. The 600 would bring no new infrastructure and would result in existing roads, health and schools being under increased severe strain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorogood. Right, that finishes the speakers on this item.
Before you go to President, can I just ask, are we looking at 2207 first, then the housing allocations, or are we doing all as one
I
big
think
package?
officers will, Sarah, are you taking these? But officers will clarify which ones, because I appreciate there are a number of sites involved here. Yeah. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to take 2207 first, if members are comfortable with that. Okay. So 2207 is on screen. I also have a plan that shows you sort of, as the speaker said, 2207 with 2210. So this is, and that includes land within Colchester District as well. So this is proposed for large-scale employment and could, in conjunction with 2210 and 2211, deliver 43.38 hectares of employment land, which will be deliverable in 5 years. In landscape terms, the site's been assessed as having a medium to low capacity for change. It's generally open and isolated. Following the decision to take into account the funding for the A12, a master plan was submitted by the promoter, which is on screen now. But for the reasons that it's isolated and open, we are not proposing to allocate this site for development. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's quite a rarity that developers bring forward quality employment land as part of the local plan process. We all know that there has to be a requirement, but actually developers willing to offer up land for for economic development purposes. It is a rarity. Often employment land is tagged on as part of a wider master plan. Great Notley Garden Village, one such example. Great Notley Garden Village started building out and I think first houses 93. It got to 2018 and the final bit of the employment land wasn't built out, and this council intervened on the 65 acres that's now known as Horizon 120. So bearing in mind the considerable growth of our part of the Braintree district, that allied to nearby a next door city of Colchester, I think there is some merits in what have been put forward here, particularly the usage for logistics, which you know is one of our strong economic sectors in this part of the world, only going to get stronger with further expansion and usage at both Port of Harwich and Stansted Airport. Also, the promoters suggested opportunities for business startups, again, which is a rarity and quite attractive. I'm intrigued by the proposal put forward by the developer that we defer for further information from Colchester City Council. I think it would be useful to know what plans Colchester City will talk about, areas perhaps of housing, Colchester City, maybe a little bit further, a little bit later on when we come to the housing application. But I do think it would be useful to find out what Colchester City may have planned in terms of economic development, because whilst this is a Braintree District Council plan at the moment in time, we know that businesses don't work within political geographies, and therefore a lot of this, as Councillor Staines said, a lot of this will be viewed through the lens of a mayor for Essex with responsibilities for economic development. So therefore things will be looked on a more broader basis. So I think it'd be interesting to know what Colchester City have got planned for this, and then perhaps to see where we are after that. Thank you.
Sarah, do you want to just come back on that?
Yes, we've spoken to Colchester in duty to cooperate meetings. They are not planning to bring any part of this sort of site forward, so they have no plans in this area for any growth.
Yeah, Councillor Cunningham.
Can I just ask, have we done, obviously as part of the local plan process, we've done economic analysis, bearing in mind, again, as I said, this performs strongly with sectors that we know currently and in the past and the future have opportunities for economic growth. Have we done an assessment how this fits not just with our local economic strategy, but an economic strategy for wider Essex?
So we've got our employment land review, and that does consider the sort of regional strategic growth. We haven't got identified needs. We've already got sufficient provision of employment land.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, well, those two answers actually fed into what I was going to say. I mean, we simply don't need this site. I'm surprised Councillor Cunningham speaks as he does, really, because the employment land review didn't say we needed this site. It went through a number of sites which we do need, and this isn't one of them. Also, and I think this speaks to what Mrs. Dobson was saying, sometimes it almost feels like the people who draw these things up don't know what's going on the ground. The proposal to have a junction on the Inworth Road, which presumably this site will be generating an enormous number of vans and lorries, is completely cloud cuckoo land. I mean, it's ridiculous to add even more heavy traffic onto the Inworth Road, which would obviously affect the, not least, the Inworth Junction with Fearing. It is also a very large incursion into open countryside. It jumps the A12 to the east and would be a very visible large-scale development, I'm sure covered in floodlights, as these industrial parks often are, which would impact on the Blackwater Valley, which you can see running right the way through the middle of that map. So I think the impacts are unacceptable and we don't need it. And as many speakers have said, this area is already going to get a lot of development, whatever we do tonight. Something like, I think, 2,000 homes are already in the pipeline and have either outline or full planning permission, including the very large strategic site at the top of the map. So I don't have any hesitation, Madam Chairman, in saying that we should reject this site.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Does any other member wish to speak on this? Right. Councillor Abbott, are you moving that the site is not allocated? Does that find a seconder? Councillor Martin? Right, that's been moved and seconded that it is not allocated. Could I have a show of hands, please? I think, okay, thank you. And against? Abstentions? 1. Thank you. So that site is not allocated. Right. Okay, Sarah, next one.
Thank you, Chair. So just following the publication of the report, we have had correspondence from Rivenhall Parish Council regarding this site, stating that it's within the parish of Rivenhall and not Kelvedon, and that this location was not considered by planning officers as an area suitable for development in the call for sites. This is due to the map which is on screen now and on page 107 of the agenda, showing land next to Oak Road, Rivenhall, as being in the suggested development area, and I'll address this shortly by showing you the illustrative master plan. So the development's not proposed to extend as far as the line shown on the agenda pack. That would be landscaping buffer at the end of the site, so development doesn't go down as far as Oak Road. This site comprises around 553 hectares of arable farmland, located to the northwest and southwest of Kelvedon, and on screen is your red hatched area that is being considered. There are a number of other sites which would be logical to include within this strategic growth allocation. These are Kelv 2209, which is essentially within the red line area for 2208. Then there's Kelv 2212, which is the small red area to this, closer to Kelvedon than 2209, next to the orange allocation. And there's 2210, which is essentially the L shape that is also contiguous with 2209. And these are all included within the illustrative master plan. So the illustrative master plan has been provided by the promoter. That's on screen. The residential areas show in orange. Employment land is shown in purple, with a possible rail-connected floor space. There are red areas that show the local centres and a new district centre, and schools are identified on the plan as PS or for primary provision or SS for secondary provision. The north-east access will be from Coggeshall Road, with routes running through the site and connecting to the A12. This is the more detailed land use plan, which shows the densities essentially decreasing as the distance from the village increases, and with landscape buffers around the site edges. So I've got some images next. So view from Oak Road, view from Church Road, view from Cranes Lane. I've got 2 of those. Some views from the public rights of way, so within the site. And view from Pantlings Lane, view from Hollow Road, small views in the public rights of way, and that's the last one from the lane. This site essentially highlights the more visually open areas towards Rivenhall, and also it doesn't come up particularly well, but the top where you can see the yellow here along the top edge, that's where there's screening, but other bits are more open. In terms of the highways evidence base, you can see that Kelvedon is one of the more sustainable locations for growth in the district, and it's therefore considered to be one of the areas where large-scale development should be explored more fully. The submission notes the opportunity to enhance facilities at Kelvedon Railway Station to help support modal shift, and there's an opportunity for the development of this scale to provide facilities which meet day-to-day needs of future residents, which has been shown on the illustrative master plan. So as set out in the report, the proposal would provide 5,000 new homes, new employment floor space, local centres and a mixed-use district centre, a range of community facilities, primary and secondary education provision, and open space including country parkland. In terms of the impact on the landscape and heritage assets, it's acknowledged that large-scale development will have an impact on Kelvedon. It's considered that yes, there will be an impact, but a lot of that can be managed through master planning. And for this reason, it's recommended that sites KELV 2208, KELV 2212, KELV 2209 and KELV 2217 are allocated as a strategic growth location. And just for the avoidance of doubt, if this is located, this strategic growth location is agreed, this relates to recommendation 9, 10 and 13 on the agenda, and also includes the allocation of KELV 2217, which I showed you at the start, and that's a small site that was previously discounted as a standalone site, but would be entirely surrounded by development if this option was taken forward, and it's therefore included within the allocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Cunningham and then Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a very difficult one, isn't it? And I totally appreciate the extent of the local public feeling from the local communities. It's tough when a previously smaller settlement becomes considerably bigger over a number of decades. And I don't think any of us are oblivious to that reality, regardless of the needs and the pressures for and the expectation for growth. Can I just ask, I mentioned when we looked at the employment site, the site allocations that are coming forward in the Colchester City area. I think it would be useful to get a flavour of those and how that potentially impacts development in this part of the Braintree district. And can I just ask also officers to clarify where Colchester City actually are with their local plan, because Councillor Staines referred to it being paused. Now, sometimes pause can mean dead stop, no further action till further notice. So if officers could just answer where they are, because I think it would be useful for not just member colleagues or those attending our meeting tonight, but those watching at home to understand where we are in relation to our immediate neighbours. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Officers?
Yeah, I can take that one. So we don't know the precise location of their employment or what they're intending to do with it as yet. What we can update members on is that Colchester, in their local plans committee back in February, members asked for some further information on, I think it was viability work. Colchester officers believe that work is nearly completed and they're going to be reporting that to their committee on the 10th of November this year, with a view to commence their Regulation 18 consultation in December or January this year. So it is still ongoing. We will probably have more answers for you when the agendas are published for the 10th of November.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, they're about 8 weeks behind us, probably.
Yes.
So therefore, there's been no cessation of preparation of a local plan. I
It
think
does
it's
sound
important
as though
to,
they are about to get properly going on it. Yes.
Sorry, may I just refer to my other question in terms of development in along the Braintree-Colchester border and potential sites that we know may well be considered their side that may have an impact?
Yeah, Alan?
They, once their agenda is republished for November, we will have a precise answer for you. I believe they were previously looking at some sites around Marks Tay, but I don't have the specific details of the actual numbers or the mixed use of those developments and whether or not that would include employment or not.
I sort of part of the employment bit. I was more concerned, just interested about the housing numbers, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I listened very carefully to what members of this committee said at the last meeting about a very similar sized development to the west of Rain. And they were talking about the loss of countryside, the loss of valued views and walks through the countryside, the loss of wildlife, the impact it would have on communities. And Kingsdean would have all of those impacts just the same. So in planning terms, we then look at, well, what would make this more acceptable, and everything hinged, because this has been on the table for some years, on the A12 and the A120. Neither of them are happening for the foreseeable future. In the agenda, it talks about this site being highly sustainable. I mean, I really would strongly challenge that. And as another speaker has said, yes, Kelvedon has a rail station, but what proportion of people will use a railway line to get to school or work or the shops or the doctors? It's actually a very small proportion compared to the whole. And whatever way we look at this, unless you're going to develop a really large community with absolutely everything in it, and guarantee in some way that you know, all bells and whistles, you're never going to keep all of your traffic in one area. It's going to spread out. And that brings me on to the fundamental objection to this site. This area is already under severe traffic pressure. This afternoon, Witham was absolutely at a standstill. Now, there is a major roadworks going on in the avenue in Witham, but Witham is grinding to a halt pretty much every single weekday evening now. I watched this afternoon as emergency vehicles couldn't get through. I watched as people were doing U-turns in the high street to try and find alternative routes out. So that's Witham, which is nearby, which some of this traffic would be going through there, because no one's going to tell me that everyone's going to go north up to Coggeshall. There'll be traffic coming down the A12 and coming through Witham. We've then got Kelvedon High Street. I mean, I hope everyone knows the situation in Kelvedon High Street. Many, many years ago in the 1970s, I learned to drive down there, and that's the only time I've ever hit anything moving. And that's because of all the parked cars. And they're still there, 40-odd years later. Severe congestion. Coggeshall Road's already been mentioned, Inworth Road and the junction. And then this development would link in to the north and to the west, to all the local lanes. So you'd have an enormous amount of traffic rat running, not a very good term, but it's the parlance, onto those lanes to get to points west, including Oak Road in Rivenhall with the infamous railway bridge, which has the weight restriction, height restriction and width restriction. Although the officer's report says listed buildings are not affected, the Parish Council points that there are some by virtue of proximity, but the listed building I want to talk about most is St Mary's Church in Rivenhall. St Mary's Church in Rivenhall is Grade 1 listed and a Scheduled Ancient Monument. You can't get any higher up the tree than that. They would be looking, one of the views the officer showed was, it said from Church Road, that was actually from the churchyard. Yeah. That view would be of an industrial estate across the valley of the Rivenhall Brook. That would be the view from a Grade 1 listed building and ancient monument. And if you look at those purple areas, as I understand them, those are industrial parks coming almost up to Rivenhall End, which would be clearly seen from the church. So 1/3 of this development, this development will take up 1/3 of the entire parish of Kelvedon and part of Rivenhall Parish. Now, the officer referred just now to the fact there'd be a standoff buffer and from that purple area right at the bottom, with, you can hardly see it on the map, but the sort of bit you can see at the bottom is Rivenhall End. Is that 500 metres, which is the threshold we're talking about for green buffers? It doesn't look it to me. So you would be talking about effective coalescence there with Rivenhall End. Now, on another item on page 23, where we're talking about another site, we quote policy SP3, which says that's designed to to maintain the character of settlements and to avoid correspondence and to maintaining undeveloped gaps between communities. Well, there would be very little gap between this huge development and Rivenhall End, and so I would suggest at the very least, if this was considered, I don't think it should be, but if it was, there should be a proper green buffer. Speakers have talked also about the cumulative impacts. So we've got the issue of the pylons coming through. That DCO has now been accepted by the government, and that's going to have a huge impact on this area. It's not just the pylons themselves, it's the access roads and the compounds and all the rest of it. Councillor Thorogood mentioned the quarrying. I've mentioned and others have mentioned the thousands of houses already built in the area or are being built, plus solar farms. This area is changing so fast, our feet are hardly touching the ground. And one of the things that's happening is the construction traffic. And I don't know if anyone else has mentioned this tonight, what this would guarantee is 2 decades or so of tipper lorries and construction traffic in this area, which is a nightmare as it stands. Now, I accept we've got to find the numbers. I've said that all along. I think I've been one of the few councillors who's sometimes been arguing we've got to fulfil our numbers. So I'm not saying that this area can't take any more development. If it came down to a least worst choice and we had no alternative, I think we could accept the one where the application's already gone in, the 600, if our hand was forced. But I don't think we can accept something this big. It is far too big, and in the absence of significant highways mitigation, significant public transport mitigation, to my mind, Madam Chairman, it's unsustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. All right, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I would take issue with Councillor Abbott in public transport because it is right next to a railway station. And for him to say that children don't use public transport for schools, that is not true. Children use the train to get to school. That is not a new thing. And likewise, people use the train for work. I would like to move officer's recommendation. One of the reasons is because you need a site this size to get the infrastructure that's been listed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So that has been moved. Does it find a seconder that site is allocated? And then I'll come back and see if anybody else wants to speak before we go to a final vote. Well, Councillor Butland?
I wonder, Madam Chairman, whether we might have more debate before we
Yes,
dive to
yes. I don't want to go to a final vote until people have
recommendation.
said what they need to say. All right. Well, but leave it at that for the moment. Would anyone like to speak? Councillor Holland and then Councillor Butland.
Just a brief question. Can officers estimate how wide the green buffer would be at the southwest end of this site, please, if it was developed as proposed?
Well, I think there's two ways of answering that question. There is as it is existing, and I'm not certain of that distance, but there's also what we could insist on. So we don't have to allocate the whole allocation. So we could insist on a 500 metre gap in line with the landscape evidence, even if that took a little bit of the growth allocation off the site. So you could move or agree that we allocate the growth location, but with a 500 metre buffer at the bottom.
Sorry, thank you. If we were to do that, do you have an idea of what the impact would be on the area which is in purple, which is the employment area?
No, I'd have to work that through. But I don't think it would have a significant loss of floor space.
Okay, Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, when we were talking about Andrewsfield last week, was it?
Yes, yeah.
I did say, I think, along with Councillor Abbott, it was a difficult decision, and we would be storing up a even more difficult decision this evening. Yeah. First of all, on the issue of infrastructure, I think we would all agree that infrastructure needs a significant size of housing development. And again, I just draw attention to that one of the biggest areas we had previously was Great Notley, 2,500 houses, which brought with it a doctor's surgery, an additional primary school, a church, a public house, a dentist, a community centre, which brought with it a supermarket. So all of that does not require people to even get a train to get around. It was designed in such a way that really it shouldn't have as much car traffic going around, because there was plenty of room for people to walk and for children to cycle. That's just me getting on my high horse about why people have lost the use of their legs on many occasions. So that I don't think is a relevant argument. You would expect this sort of size development to bring forward all of that, and it needs a master plan to ensure that that happens. And also we can learn from Great Notley when you get the employment land, etc., that we don't allow developers to leave it to the last moment, and then also come up with things about, oh, we couldn't possibly, as we had at Panner's Farm, you know, couldn't possibly find somewhere there for more local shops, and can we not build houses? We stuck to our guns there as an authority, and lo and behold, they have now got the shops there in that top end by the bridge. So that, I think, is important to remember. The advantage, I mean, as you know, I abstained on the Andrews Field, I think, along with 2 other colleagues. This certainly is not as potentially remote as Andrews Field was. There's no doubt about that. I was accepted with Andrews Field that it was not as well. This may not be ideally so, but it is better served than Andrews Field would have been served. And we do have to, and our Labour colleagues might want to think, you know, join in the debate. This is government policy that we are implementing, and I hope, with all due respect, Madam Chairman, to colleagues, that, you know, you're not just going to sit there and not say anything, because this is being thrust upon us by way of the new government. Now, I'm not debating that. I'm not opposing it, because I've said here before, there is a need for housing. There's a need for our young people to have housing. And I don't just mean nice, posh, 3-4 bedroom housing. I mean affordable housing, housing to rent. The whole gamut of housing is needed. And we cannot get away from the fact that this is a growing and popular area in the county for people to want to come and reside. So I can understand fully this fundamentally. When you look at that map and you look at the size of Kelvedon, that does change things. But just go back through history and look at some of the small villages that existed, maybe 50 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, that are now significant conurbations. And if not here, then where? If not here, then where? Because we have got a target to meet. That target, it's not just meeting the target, it's about looking after our future residents in terms of enabling our younger people to actually remain in the district, to seek employment in the district, to go to school in the district. So I know it'll be a larger district with LGR, but basically in the area that we're talking about now. So I am inclined at this stage to go along with officer's recommendation, but I'm still open to arguments that other members might wish to make.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. I will just say, and this is a fact, it's not my opinion at all, but as Councillor Butland said, we do have a housing target given to us by the government with a very clear message. They expect all local authorities, not just Braintree, but all local authorities to make that housing target together with a sound local plan, and the consequences of not doing so are, you know, quite severe. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much. And again, just echo the points I made earlier. This is very sensitive, and I appreciate the sensitivities. I think the crux of this, as mentioned, the failures to deliver the A120 and the A12 improvements. And I'm afraid it is a shocking indictment, and I'll be brutally honest, on both governments over a 30-year period, that a county that's a net contributor to the Exchequer has not been able to, has not had those bits of infrastructure unlocked, and it puts us in a highly invidious position now. And also, when we were having the difficult conversation 7-8 years ago, this emerging local plan over the garden communities, and I totally appreciate there was a great deal of anxiety in this part of the world. It was suggested by many of all parties that somehow, you could get the A120 and you could get the A12 without the garden communities. Well, the A120 went very, very quickly, and now this part of the world and the wider part of Essex has been royally let down over the A12. So it is frustrating. There is, as Councillor Button says, there is a great difference between this and Andrews Field. Not just the railway credentials, but the closeness to an existing thriving community. You know, it's not developers suggesting, oh, there's perfectly acceptable, sustainable transport options if you go orienteering across fields to Braintree or vice versa. Slight embellishment of, perhaps a slight exaggeration of what was on offer last week, but not much of an exaggeration. So there are some greater credentials here and the possibility to lever in. Key to this, these sites or collective sites being sustainable is unlocking mitigations on the A12. So I think before I'd be prepared to vote or second anything, I think it would be useful for clarification that if we put this in our emerging proposals for the Regulation 18 consultation, that will go out and we'll hear the comments. There is the opportunity there, my understanding, for the further work, the full traffic modelling from Essex County Council and all the other required social and transport evidence to come forward during that period. The opportunity to use considerable, I hope, cross-party muscle flex at all levels of government, and to members of Parliament's credit, across all the three main parties involved in this, they have been lobbying, and I think being incumbent on the local authorities to do that as well, that this is only remotely viable if the A1, if there's some A12 mitigations that make it viable. So just sort of seeking officers' comfort that actually, if we are minded to put that for Regulation 18, that additional work still can be done, and there is a possibility to review this if we are not convinced of convinced those mitigations will be in place.
Sarah, do you just want to come back on that?
Yes, of course. So yes, the strategic modelling work isn't done yet. That will be with us before the Reg 18 goes out to consultation. It will form part of the consultation. That will essentially provide a sort of heat map of congestion for the spatial options that we're proposing. And then after that, you start to look at mitigation and what the potential mitigation is. All of this is happening between Regulation 18 and Regulation 19, together with inputting from Network Rail around the rail opportunities, National Highways about the strategic road network, as well as ECC. So yes, all of this, and then should there be fundamental showstoppers, we would have to stop and revisit what we took forward to Regulation 19. So it is the first consultation.
Thank you, Sarah. And yes, we have got meetings of this committee scheduled, I think, already in our diaries for January, February, following Reg 18, to review the feedback from Reg 18, but also to look at any information that's come in. So this is by no means the end of the story. It's not even the beginning of the end. Councillor Finken.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the strongest elements of the master plan is the improvements to education in Kelvedon. You know, at the moment, the children are having to go to a number of other different towns, and I think having a new secondary school in particular really strengthens the community. You know, it's a centre for the community, which Kelvedon has never had. And I think that ought to be emphasised as one of the great improvements for Kelvedon that this master plan could provide.
Thank you, Councillor Finken. Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come back again, Madam Chairman. And this obviously is a very big issue for the area, part of which I represent. Councillor Martin had a bit of a pop at me. I'm not saying that no one will use the train. I got the train to school for 5 years, so I really know that some children get the train. My point is that the majority of people will not use the train all the time for those services. Some will, absolutely, hundreds, perhaps thousands, but the majority won't, and therefore this development will increase traffic in the area. Anyone who says otherwise is, as I say, in cloud cuckoo land. It was very remiss of me not to mention Great Notley, and our members obviously always do, and I had meant to, because there was, I thought, a very helpful submission from the Kelvedon and Fearing Heritage Society. And they said actually what I've been sort of waiting to say until this last meeting on the major sites, is that actually none of these large sites are sustainable, and an alternative strategy, and perhaps we should have done this right from the start, to actually look at a spatial strategy for this particular decision-making process, would be to go for a series of developments about the Great Notley size, about the 2.5 maybe 3,000 sites, rather than these very, very big developments. It's something I certainly could have supported, and I think it still would, as members opposite have said, have levered in enough of the services to make them more sustainable. Because what we're doing now, if we vote for this, is we're lumping 50% of the houses we need into one site, without the major transport infrastructure that this site originally said it was going to be reliant on in terms of the A120 and A12. And that is a massive risk. So to conclude, Madam Chairman, Councillor Butland's point, if not here, then where? Well, where would be probably 4 or 5 sites of the Great Notley size, rather than this big.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Right, Councillor Schwer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think this has been a very interesting conversation, and I think we have got a very difficult choice here as members of this committee with regards, the points have been made about the government objectives and the benefits that seemingly they will bring. And also, we have been very disappointed with regards to the government and the road network from the A120 and A12. But the scale of this, and it is, I think, part of the master plan that is going to bring the benefits. And it doesn't matter where across Braintree district we are potentially going to put some of the larger applications. We are going to hear the same arguments again about sustainability, loss of views, heritage sites, wildlife, environment and everything, because by its nature of selecting this, we are going to be building for people to live in the future. And I think that's the thing, is that the decisions we make tonight potentially are going to affect generations to come. And they're going to be our children and our grandchildren. And this really is a decision that we need to look at strategically, to think about the future, but the future of all of our families, the future of where we're going to work, and the future that we can leave behind us, because there may well be a few of us in this room that won't have perhaps the benefit to see this built out totally. But it's the scale and the master planning that is important, I believe. And I find it very difficult, because I do appreciate what people have come forward and said. And I think we can all empathise with that process. But we have this difficult task of also delivering what not only the government want, but actually what the people want generally. We have been talking about master plans, we've been talking about delivering infrastructure, about the benefits of the road. We've mentioned about the primary schools, the secondary schools, about the open spaces. So if we really are serious in a way about delivering the quality of that master plan that will encompass all that we want for our future generations, and especially with employment land, that combination, it is beginning to look like it is a strategy that is founded on a very practical basis that will encompass, of course, it's not going to be acceptable to everybody, but I think overall, the master plan in the long term is going to give all of the benefits, from open spaces to schools, from dentists and doctors, but also places for everybody to live, to our affordable housing. And I'm glad somebody mentioned about specialist housing, because that's going to be really important in the future. And it is this scale that's going to be deliver all of this. If we carry on choosing smaller sites across the district, we possibly will not be able to deliver those benefits that people are looking for. From whatever age you are now, we are actually trying to plan the future of the people of this part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schreier. Councillor Munday.
I'd just like to concur with Councillor Schwer and also Councillor Martin about the size of these developments that bring the infrastructure. And I'd just like to point out that not the last meeting, but the first strategic site allocation, we looked at Halstead as a whole. and that's 2,770 homes, which would increase Halstead by 50%. So, you know, and I voted in favour of that because that's the only way that we're going to get the infrastructure without the bottlenecks and the lack of services. So whilst this isn't perfect, and I wouldn't like to see particularly 5,000 homes on the doorstep, we are looking for finding figures for the government's targets, and I would have to support this because of the infrastructure that it would bring to the district.
Thank you, Councillor Monday. All right, Councillor Martin,
Yeah,
did you want to?
finish off
Yep.
quickly that we all want more teachers, paramedics, doctors and nurses, but they've got to have somewhere affordable to live, and at the moment they can't afford anywhere near their work at Colchester Hospital, Broomfield and along between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I think this has been a very broad, very good debate. So, Councillor Martin did move that this site, well, sites be allocated. So, just before I go any further, just to be clear, this is 2208, 2209, 2212 and 2217. Is that right, officers? Make sure I got that right. Okay. So, does that find a seconder? Councillor Cunningham, I think you just got in there first. Right, so I've had it moved and seconded that those sites are allocated. Could I have a show of hands, please? 11, yes. Against? 1. Okay, and abstentions? No, that's fine. So that, thank you, members. Those sites have been allocated in the draft plan at this stage. Thank you. Right, I'll just give people a few minutes to leave. Right, members, we're just going to skip down the agenda now to recommendation 17, which cites Silver End 2278, land north of Temple Lane. So I have a speaker on that, who's Mr. Andy Moffat from Savills. Good evening, Mr. Moffat. Thank you for waiting.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, members, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Andy Moffat, Director of Savills East of England Planning Team, representing our client Crowdace Homes in respect of land north of Temple Lane, Silver End. We would like to start by thanking officers for their report. Crowdace welcomes that it concludes that the highway's impacts of proposed 350 to 600 dwellings are unlikely to be severe, and the proposal has accessible linkages to the existing bus network, providing sustainable travel alternatives to reach a main town. The proposal will create improvements to the accessibility of White Notley railway station. Crowdace are keen to work with the council to explore this opportunity. The proposal would unlock land for an additional 80 homes off Francis Way. The intervening state, Manners Way, will block intervisibility from the site and the core of the conservation area, and there is identified benefit of providing a new primary school on the site. The concluding paragraph of the report asserts the following adverse effects would be caused by the proposal: heritage, countryside character, integration, contamination, and reliance on existing infrastructure. Taking these in turn, the Council's Landscape Sensitivity Assessment 2025 states that the site has a medium to low landscape capacity to accommodate development. Therefore, the site has some capacity to accommodate development, and is why Crowdace proposed 350 to 600 dwellings on the site, opposed to the 938 dwellings the Council consider the site has capacity for. This would enable a lower density landscape-led development to be delivered, which would preserve the separation between new development and the conservation area, and thereby preserve the setting of the conservation area. The appeal on land west of Boars Tie Road concluded that that scheme would have a neutral effect on and would therefore preserve the character and appearance of the Silver End conservation area. We assert that a sensitively designed development on the site would similarly have a neutral effect on the character and appearance of the Silver End Conservation Area. Furthermore, the MPPF and indeed the Silver End Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan accept that the extent of the surroundings in which a heritage asset or experience is not fixed and may change as the asset and its surroundings evolve. A link through the Scott Properties appeal site, land west of Bors Tye Road, is available and deliverable, and in relation to integration, the majority of the site would be within the 10-minute standard walkable distance, and all of the site would be within the 20-metre maximum walkable distance for daily needs. Crowdays have instructed a Phase 1 desk study, which they are happy to share with the Council, and the report considers reliance on existing infrastructure to be an adverse effect. Crowdays do not necessarily consider this to be so. Where capacity exists for the site or can be provided, additional development can indeed support infrastructure, services and facilities. And then lastly, in summary, the lower density landscape-led development proposed and continuing engagement with the Council will ensure that all the asserted concerns are addressed and the benefits of development can be delivered. Alternative schemes of 350 or 600 dwellings are put forward, and Crowdays therefore respectfully request that the site be allocated in the new local plan.
Thank you, Mr Moffat, very much indeed.
Thank you, members.
Who's taking this one? Alan?
Thank you very much. So this is Silv 2278. It's land north of Temple Lane. The site is approximately 37 hectares in size. It could accommodate up to 938 dwellings. However, we've had two proposals, one for 600 and one for 300 put before us. This will be a large extension to Silver End and is currently a greenfield site. Just show the first slide here is the larger scheme for 600, showing an area for a primary school in the middle there, and the lower capacity proposal is there, also still showing the primary school. So the site does have some landscape sensitivity issues. It does have relatively limited constraints. There's things like public rights of way on the site. There are possible limitations on access opportunities, and the site is adjacent to Silver End Conservation Area at one point. Silver End does have a relatively low infrastructure provision at the moment. Things like the primary school is considered to be at capacity. So there is that to consider as well. I mean, if the sites for a primary school is to be provided, 350 homes probably wouldn't be able to meet the sort of threshold to actually provide a fully functional primary school. County have advised us that we'll be looking at around about 750 dwellings if we wanted to get a new primary school or one form-entry primary school on a site. So the site is not recommended for allocations due to sort of infrastructure heritage concerns, and it's therefore recommended to not allocate it as per recommendation 17 on page 60. Thank you.
Councillor Abbott?
Silver End has taken hundreds of houses in the last few years, and yet we still have the large brownfield site in the centre of the village undeveloped. I mean, one of the most obvious glaring failures of planning, I would think, in this district and possibly wider, that a large available brownfield site just sits there derelict decade after decade, whilst developers build on fields around the edge of the village. The Speaker referred at length to the conservation area. What he didn't say was that the Place Services report on the conservation area specifically said that the growth of the estates around the village is affecting the conservation area and changing the nature of the village. So I would, and also I could raise lots of other issues, but it's already getting late. It'll be getting late by the time we finish about traffic. The main access is on Bors Tye Road, subject to multiple fatalities over the years, and a road with very high speeds, which is a constant problem coming into the village south-eastwards. So I've got no hesitation in support of Officer recommendation. The village has taken enough development, and if anyone was to say, well, you know, NIMBY attitude, we've got more houses being built now on the appeal site, which is that area in the top of the development, the top of the map, and we've also got the factory site to come, and Redrow is still building out their site on Western Road. So even if this doesn't happen, we've still got hundreds more houses to come.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Anyone else? Councillor Cunningham.
Just happy to second Councillor Abbott's moving. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else want to comment on that? If not, I've had a mover and seconder not to allocate this site. Could I have a show of hands, please? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. Now, members, do you want that's the end of the speakers, so we'll go back to the top of the agenda. Do you want a 5-minute break, or do you want yes? Would you? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's have just 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes, if that's all right. Thank you, members. I think we'll carry on, if we may. And I'm just actually going to go back because we had two other Kelvedon sites that we didn't cover off. So recommendation 11, which is site Kelv 2210, and recommendation 12, 2211. So I'll just do those two next, if that's all right, because we have two gentlemen in the audience who both spoke on it earlier. So who's taking this one?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies. So 2210 is on the screen now in the sort of T-shaped, and this is the bigger picture sort of plan that shows you essentially 2210, the land to the south being Kelv 2207, which we've already voted on. 2211 is slightly to the left, but not shown on that plan, but that shows you where we are in the district boundaries. So this 2210 is a greenfield site proposed for around 265 dwellings. So again, it's the same sort of issue as we had previously. It's not contiguous with the boundary of Kelvedon, although a portion would adjoin the Fearing strategic growth location. The access is within Colchester, there would be a need for cooperation, and we know that Colchester aren't looking to bring this forward at this time. So as a result, Kelv 2210 is not recommended for allocation.
Right. Any Councillor Cunningham?
Just a question further to my points I made about sort of cooperating with Colchester City Council. We know that this will not be a site they consider when they resume their meetings in November.
We do know that, yes. We know they're bringing forward. They plan to bring forward a level of growth that meets the target, and we know they've already discounted this one.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Any other comments? If not, thank you. Councillor Butler's moved. Let's have a seconder. Councillor Martin, can I have a show of hands on that one then, please? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. Right. Sarah, 2211.
I haven't got a huge amount more to say, although I do like to talk, as my husband will tell you. But 2211 is on the plan there to the left. So it's largely the same. It's isolated. It doesn't really have an achievable access as shown. We're not certain what that would be. So given its isolated nature and it's inaccessible, we're not recommending this one for growth, for allocation either.
Right. Members, any comments? Move. Right. Councillor Finken's moved. Councillor Martin has seconded. Show of hands.
Doesn't look a million miles away from the east of Braintree proposal that we deferred. Can I just, are you able to, sorry, Alan, you just have to point where that is.
It is. Yeah. A131, Marks Farm roundabout, Galley's Corners here. You can see Crest 2101 and 2108 references here. So the smaller site is this one here, so it touches the boundary of it here.
Oh, right, okay.
And then goes up the top there. So as you see, this bit is connecting. I do feel like a weather person. But it does kind of, it spreads out that way. Raining. Yeah, it's everywhere, I think. Thank you.
Right. Okay. And potential allocation of 600 dwellings. Yeah, but not recommended. Thank you, Councillor Bowes-Flint. That find a seconder somewhere. Councillor Martin, can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. Right. Recommendation 2, Brad 2049, Patterswick Hall Farms.
Thank you very much. So this is Patterswick Hall Farms. Previously it was referred to as Monk's Wood. It's north of the A120 between Braintree and Coggeshall. It's around about 866 hectares. In theory could accommodate about 5,000 to 5,500 houses, as well as other uses such as employment, local centres, etc. It is a greenfield site. It is also of a scale which will most likely be able to provide a range of services, including secondary school provision. It does score well in terms of potential sustainable transport, presumably due to the existing bus routes on the A120. However, there are still traffic issues at Marks Tay, Marks Farm and Galley's Corner. The site has several listed buildings within it, as well as archaeological sites, all of which would require further considerations in terms of their impact. Main concern would be landscape impact and impact on the character of the area. Overall, the site is not recommended for allocation as per recommendation 2 on page 17 of the report. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much. I suppose you go around circles enough time, things come back to the beginning again, and this is one I do remember in the emerging local plan, and there was potential, some merits to it, because I remember the then developer, I think, made some offers regarding the A120, which but no, we were going to get the A120 without any additional houses, weren't we? That was the line that peddled, and that hasn't panned out terribly well. So obviously, if we're having, I think we perhaps need to explain to people of Kelvedon, who many were here this evening and left feeling a little bit stung by events, why that proposal's perhaps more attractive than this proposal, bearing in mind there were previous offers on the table for some A120 mitigations, which wasn't a whole new A120, which is required, but there's nothing on the table for the A120 at the moment. So yes, I think just a little bit. I think a little bit of explanation around that would be very useful, if at all possible, please.
Yes, please, Alan, because the report does highlight some advantages to this.
Okay, I mean there are some advantages to the site. Is of a scale that could provide for the necessary infrastructure. It does, and as I say, it is already next to the A120. Problem we would have with it is National Highways have indicated that they wouldn't be accepting any further accesses onto the A120 for this site. So without an A120 dualling proposal and having this route downgraded, it's unlikely we will be able to get any highway support for the site. Nearest railway station, I think, is at Braintree for this one, so it's a little further out, so there's not one in close proximity, so you'd either be reliant on car or bus. Coggeshall is quite close to it. Is separated by the A120 as well, but probably in the earlier phases of development for this site, people would most likely be dependent on either Coggeshall or Braintree to access the majority of their services and until they came online. So it does have some advantages, but overall it's not as good as the Kelvedon site in terms of its location or its sustainability potential. And I think the landscape here would probably be quite significantly sort of potentially worse impact potentially than at Kelvedon, although we would obviously need some further work on that to confirm that, but going from site visits we've conducted.
Right, okay. Thank you, Alan. So once again we've been a little bit stymied by the lack of A12, A120 progress. Councillor Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just follow on from that, Alan, because I know you said in your first presentation or the main presentation that the sustainable transport part of this, and then you mentioned Marks Farm and Galley's Corner, then potentially part of the Easter Braintree one that's been deferred. That kind of work could come, but from what you're saying is, because I'm just conscious that if we haven't got the numbers at the end of this process, there could be some sites, but potentially, like happened before, that we come back to this committee that we have to discuss again. Are we saying this is not going to be one because of that, or is there the potential, if we're saying there's some good parts of this, is there a potential that we could be discussing this again?
If we were to reduce the numbers or split, yes.
I would say unlikely. It's mostly because then sort of the scale, well, the axis is a problem, and likely the scale of any shortfall probably wouldn't justify a settlement of this size. So probably not. I wouldn't want to discount anything there. So.
Councillor Cunningham.
And I totally appreciate all that's been said there, but I'm just conscious there was a great effort in terms of sustainable transport from the Earls Cone area down to Kelvedon Station. Marks Tay Station isn't so far away in terms of some sustainable transport solutions or improved sustainable transport solutions there. And are we saying that in no way would this be viable if some sort of meaningful A120 mitigation, like a new bypass, like a dual carriageway road around Coggeshall or the vicinity, that would allow new access roads and appropriate junctions to unlock access to the site. Are we still saying that wouldn't be sustainable?
I think what we're saying is that at this time we wouldn't have national highway support for this site until something has been done to the A120.
But working on the assumption, and we perpetually live in hope, but national highways haven't offered anything yet. If someone was to offer something in terms of that could be something could be levered in through development, I just think, you know, we're not going to get the infrastructure from government anytime soon, I don't think, unless we make a positive case. And so I'm just keen that we sweat all the options that whilst they're open to us.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and it maybe if the highways situation was different, this might be a good deal more acceptable. Right. Alan, do you want to come back up at all?
Just to say that the route, well, this site doesn't control any of the land that would be required to sort of go from A120 to A12 under the current route option proposals. So, I mean, there is the possibility it could pay for some of it, but they don't have any of that control of that land. You'd have to most likely compulsory purchase to actually have that, that take place. So I would describe it as very uncertain. And I hate to think what the A120 would cost now when we were looking at the costs previously, so it would be quite expensive.
Okay. Right. See no other hands up for comments. Would somebody like to move something? At the moment, this is not allocated for. Move, and that's been moved and seconded. It's not allocated. Could I have a show of hands, please? All right, thank you. And against that? Abstentions? No. Yes, one. Thank you. Thank you, members. Right, so that site 2049 is not allocated. Right, recommendation 3, Coggeshall 2083, land at Marks Tay, which is potential for 4,000 dwellings.
Okay, thank you very much. So this site was also previously in the last local plan, or partially. So what they've put forward now is for 450 hectares and 4,000 dwellings, of which 153 hectares and 1,243 dwellings would be in the district. This allocation will be dependent on the site coming forward in Colchester as well, and also not all of the site has been submitted as previously submitted, and as some areas of it are now missing. The site is in Fearing and Coggeshall parish areas, I've said it's previous adoption. The site has limited constraints, and it's located on the A120, A12 near the station at Marks Tay. However, the Norwich to Tilbury and SIP does run through part of this area. No joint working is currently taking place with Colchester on cross-strategic sites like this, though we are obviously meeting with them through duty requirements under the duty to cooperate, and it's likely that we would need to obviously have some joint working with Colchester for this site to come forward. If that were to happen, it's likely that the development on our side of the border, as it were, would probably take quite some time to come forward, as they would most likely start from the Marks Tay end, so we might not see houses on this site until much later in the plan period, or possibly earlier into the next plan period. So as such, any development on the site would be quite long term. Therefore, it's not proposed to allocate the site as per recommendation 3 on page 18. Thank you.
Right, members. Councillor Cunningham.
I'm just wondering, again, forgive me if that sounds like a broken record, but bearing in mind where Colchester City are in their process, and they'll be bringing their updated plans forward soon, I'm just wondering, should we reserve judgment on this a little bit? Until we know what the potential, what if there's any potential development the other side, and more importantly, what that may unlock again.
Yeah, Alan? Yep.
From our discussions, it's unlikely that they would be pursuing a growth which would be contiguous with the development on our side of the boundary. That is obviously subject to their committee's agreement when they take their papers back to November. So it's a little way off, I think. Yeah.
Just for clarity, we're working on the assumption that there won't be any land allocated between the Braintree Colchester city border on the A120 and the settlement of Great Tay, Little Tay that blends into Marks Tay. So that will there's nothing in the pipeline that side of the border.
We think they were going to allocate something, but not in the gap. But that was to be subject to their agreement. So.
Okay. Right. It's difficult, isn't it, when you're not entirely sure what your neighbours are going to do. Councillor Martin.
Well, I think we're touching at schools here, really. I think we've got to go with the information that the officers have provided. I recommend moving officers' recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So does that find a seconder? Councillor Finken. Right. Can I have a... Did you want to come back, Councillor?
Yeah, I just think it's all really rather unsatisfactory, isn't it? We're trying to think about things for 20, 30 years. I don't think it's clutching at straws to actually looking at all the alternatives, regardless of whether LGR or not, you know, to see what can unlock. You know, we kept coming back to the huge deficit we've got in infrastructure in this vicinity. I just think it's short-sighted to rule anything out when we don't know what's happening literally yards away from the border.
Councillor Abbott.
I think it's short-sighted to build over the entire south of the district, because you know all these sites. If we put them all in, if you put, well, I'm speaking in a minute. If you put that in, and Colchester coming this way, and you've just allocated King's Dean, and you're thinking about allocating the one at Patterswick, what's left of the countryside? You've basically joined Braintree up to Colchester.
Okay. Well, members, I've had it moved and seconded that the site is not allocated. So let's have a vote on that and see where it gets us, please. Not to allocate. 7, 8. Okay. Against. 1 and abstentions. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, members. So that site is not allocated. Right, recommendation 4 we dealt with earlier, and that has been deferred. So recommendation 5 is Hatfield Peveril 2191, land south of the A12.
Thank you. So, land south of the A12, this is a greenfield site currently in agricultural use. It's approximately 8.79 hectares in size. And it's been proposed for sort of a commercial use for servicing lorry parking and delivery, excuse me. The site would be accessed onto the A12 via Hatfield Road. The site was previously impacted by the A12 development consent order, but obviously that's now somewhat uncertain. And the site is considered to be isolated from both the Witham and Hatfield Peveril, and it's uncertain whether it would actually be suitable in highways terms for the uses proposed. It would likely have an urbanising effect on the area between Hatfield, Peveril and Witham, and potentially reducing the gap, resulting in a possible degree of coalescence. As such, it's not recommended for allocation as per recommendation 5 on page 24. Thank you.
Thank you. And this, oh yes, this was proposed for commercial services and lorry parking. Yeah, right, okay. Right, Councillor Martin.
Because there's a comment from the Town Council, I may well have discussed this at planning meeting last year, so I should we?
Yes, Alison, yes. Well,
exactly. I think I should go just in case I did discuss it.
okay. Thank you. Right. Okay. Right.
I move officer's recommendation.
That it's not allocated. Yeah. And seconded, Councillor Coleridge, or are you commenting? Seconding. Right. Okay. Let's have a vote on that then, please. Which is unanimous, so we can get Councillor Martin back. Well, unless you discuss the others as well. Right, let's just check with her. Councillor Martin, are you in the same or similar situation with the next couple? Hatfield 2193 and 2195. Do you want to go? Yeah, okay. Right. So, recommendation 6 is 2193, again, land north of A12.
Thank you. So this is land north of the A12. It's around 56 hectares and could accommodate around 1,700 dwellings. The site was partially impacted by the A12 DCO, and permission was granted for a temporary construction compound on the southern area of the site. Site is Grade 2 agricultural land with public rights of way. It also has potential noise issues from the A12 and the railway line. The developer has suggested a green buffer to help maintain a gap. The current access would be unlikely be suitable for development of the site, and access was potentially possible to the A12 with a new junction layout design that was going to be included in the DCO. The applicant has submitted a revised diagram which suggests that they may be able to access the site by providing the road link to the north and leaving sufficient space for the roundabout to be added later, so it would connect into Witham on the right hand side via the existing road infrastructure, and on the left hand side next to Hatfield Peveril as well. So that would be sort of a partial road connection there, with the potential to provide that junction at a later date if the DCO were to ever re-emerge. Hatfield Peveril does also have a neighbourhood plan which includes a green buffer, which this site does cover. However, the site is not proposed for allocation due to concerns about the access as per recommendation 6 on page 28. Thank you.
Right, members. Councillor Butland.
Could I just ask that paragraph 390 says recognise, this is from Hatfield Parish Council, which recognise the increased mandatory housing requirement through Braintree District. Council leader favours a new garden community west of Braintree. That certainly was my position 5 years ago. I did abstain on Andrews Field last week, so you know, I realise that I can get blamed for lots of things, but that's not quite an accurate statement. If I could just draw attention to that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Alan.
Yes, this was the full extent of the comments submitted to us by the parish council, so that's why that has appeared in there. But obviously, if it's not accurate, it's not accurate.
No. Okay. Well, we noted that. Okay. Right. Would anybody, Councillor Coleridge, you moving that's not allocated? Seconder, Councillor Bowes-Flint. Show of hands, please. It's unanimous. Thank you. So recommendation 7 next, which is Hatfield Peveril 2195, land at Bovington's Farm, which I think is 450 to 500 homes proposed.
Okay, thank you. So 63 hectares, between 450 and 500 dwellings. Primary concern at the moment is the access of the site. As was seen on the previous site, this site could have potentially contributed or accessed onto a new junction onto the A12. This could have provided a little bypass for Hatfield Peveril from the Malden Road, avoiding the Duke of Wellington roundabout. Unfortunately, that has obviously fallen away now. The site has a number of fishing lakes on it as well, and it's also within a green buffer in the neighbourhood plan, and could potentially lead to some coalescence between Hatfield Peveril and Witham. The traffic issue is, there's still a problem potentially with the Duke of Wellington and additional traffic, and unfortunately the site is not able to really solve that at this time. due to the change in circumstances. Which is a shame because the Malden Road is also quite a key route out of Malden District onto the A12. I think it's about one of 3 routes they have out of their district. Unfortunately, we're going to have to not recommend this for allocation as per recommendation 7 on page 32. Thank you.
Right, members, any comment? Anybody want to? Councillor Monday? Move. Councillor Monday. Seconded. Councillor Coleridge. Vote, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right. So I think we can now get Councillor Martin back. Thank you, Dominic. Right. Okay, members. So all the Kelvedon sites were discussed, and we can go to recommendation 14, which is site 2513 Rivenhall Oaks Golf Course, 500 dwellings.
Thank you. So Rivenhall Oaks Golf Course, 45 hectares for 500 dwellings. The site is adjacent to some existing permissions along Forest Road. It's in an area identified as green buffer in the current local plan, and the recent landscape evidence has continued to support that position. There aren't any contamination issues identified on site, although there are some minor noise concerns in relation to the railway line. Site layout plan has been provided. That is shown a suggested layout which could provide the 500 homes whilst retaining a lot of the buffer between Witham and Rivenhall in Rivenhall Parish. However, there is still the potential here for landscape impact as well as coalescence between Witham Hall and Rivenhall, and also the loss of the potential loss of the golf course as well. The recommendation 14 is on page 51 and is to not allocate the site for development. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Abbott.
Well, if I sound like a broken record, sorry, Madam Chairman, but
That's
the
all right.
opening paragraph doesn't even mention this is in Rivenhall Parish. You know, we keep having to say this. The geographical fact that I don't know why the planning department seems to do it so often, but this entire site is within Rivenhall Parish. It actually goes very deep into Rivenhall Parish. And the entire site is also in the green buffer, and I'm pleased the officers said that we've just had the appraisal for the green buffers, and while some regrettably have been dropped, this one wasn't, and it said it was essential to maintain the gap between Rivenhall and Witham. And again, like a broken record, this area has taken hundreds of houses in recent years. If this was developed, it would effectively mean the end of Rivenhall as a separate village. Also, interestingly, the comments from the parish council that are quoted in the agenda are the comments from Witham Town Council. They're not the comments from Rivenhall Parish Council. Not that I know what they are, because I wasn't party to them, but it is a bit of a trend that Rivenhall sort of gets overlooked. Anyway, I hope members go with officer recommendation. And the one final thing I wanted to say is this intriguing and novel suggestion of a link road through to Oak Road. Just to the right there, where the railway line is, I'm sure lots of people know it, is the railway bridge, which is height restriction, width restriction and weight restriction, and is subject to traffic congestion every single peak time. The idea that that would become a through road to connect from Witham, which would definitely become a rat run for the A12, is completely ludicrous.
Yeah, fair enough. Right. If there are no other comments, would you like to move, Councillor Abbott? Yes. And seconded, Councillor Butland. Show of hands, please. Thank you, members. Right. Moving on to recommendation 15. Or is that the one we've just done? No, recommendation 15, yes. Silver End 2271, land east of Silver End.
Thank you very much. So land east of Silver End, this site's approximately 165 hectares and could accommodate between 1,500 and 1,800 dwellings. Part of the site does lie within Bradwell Parish. Concept site plan shows potential for new employment, education, a commercial hub, link road, and this particular one was designed to be in conjunction with a possible A120 bypass. The site is primarily agricultural fields, public rights of way, and vehicle access is proposed via multiple points. We haven't got any contamination issues specifically identified on site. The site is next to Silver End, obviously, which is a historic village with conservation area as well as listed heritage sites. Given the site's adverse landscape impact and uncertainty of the A120, it's not recommended, but not recommended to allocate the site for development as per recommendation 15 on page 55. Thank you.
So this is highways and impact on landscape and character and so on. Okay, right, Councillor Abbott.
Just concur with officer's recommendation. Can you go back to the wider view? This is quite interesting. It doesn't show the waste site. That's sort of what would you call it? Like an L shape, just to the right of it. That's where the incinerator is. So anyone living there would have a bullseye view of the incinerator and its chimney, which is remarkable. But I think why we shouldn't recommend this is for two main reasons. Why the devastating impact on Silver End as a conservation area and village, it completely transform it out of all recognition. But secondly, because the transport that it's relying on is not going to happen, or at least not for a very long time, the A120. So the comments I just made about the other site would apply to this. All the traffic from this would be using the road through Riverton or Silver End to go down to the A12 and Witton.
Okay. Right. Can I have somebody to move? Councillor Abbott, Councillor Butland is seconding, and a show of hands, please. Thank you, members. That's unanimous. Right. Recommendation 16, Silver End 2275, Whitehead's Farm, which is for around 1,000 dwellings.
Again, I'm afraid. Whitehead Farm, so this is about 36 hectares for about 1,000 dwellings. The site is largely in arable use and is a relatively flat site with a few natural features such as hedgerows and trees. Development on the site would not be considered to be a logical extension to Silver End, and also, as previously mentioned, we have some concerns about infrastructure capacity in the village, such as the primary school being near or at capacity. Due to poor landscaping, adverse impacts on the character of the countryside, and potential for impact on the rural setting of the conservation area and village and other heritage assets, it is not proposed to allocate the site as per recommendation 16 on page 56. Thank you.
Right, yes, Councillor Abbott.
Agree with all of that and a couple of other points. The woodland at the bottom there, Rivenhall Thicks, which it joins, is an ancient woodland. Right. And that little tongue that sticks out between Rivenhall Thicks and joins up is where the pylons are due to go.
Okay.
So that sort of speaks to some of the things we were talking about earlier about all these developments in the south of the district crowding in one another. But I think the overriding thing is it's completely unnatural shape. I mean, it just has no connection at all with the village.
Right out in the countryside, yeah. Okay, would you like to move that, Councillor Abbott, then? And seconder, Councillor Butland. Show of hands, please. Thank you, members. All right. We dealt with recommendation 17 a little earlier, so recommendation 18 is Silver End 2279, land east of Silver End.
Okay, so this is a similar extent to Silver 2271, which we've just discussed. Apologies. This is about 135 hectares and between 90 and 102,200 dwellings. Well, the difference is there's been some areas excluded, such as around Sheepcoats Farm and areas to the north-east of where the previously proposed A120 was. The site's been given a couple of variations, with one being that there's a potential, they're showing a potential connection to a future A12 A120 link. Sorry to go back. If you see, there's a slight difference there, and apologies, in what can be accommodated on the site at the top there. So if you just go back, and so there's a little bit of a little bit of a revised extent there. So the site is mainly in arable use at the moment, and has some sort of medium to low capacity in terms of landscape terms. We would definitely require a heritage impact assessment due to the number of heritage assets in the area. There has been raised the possibility that this development could be powered through the IWMF site, although the site itself could potentially be in the IWMF site could possibly impact on future residents, but it's not recommended to allocate the site as per recommendation 18 on page 64. Thanks.
Councillor Abbott.
Same comments as before. I mean, it's essentially the same. So I'll move opposite recommendation.
Right. Yep. Seconded, Councillor Butland. And show of hands. Thank you, members. Right. Okay. So recommendation 19 is site 2289, land north of Coggeshall Road, Slystead.
Yep, thank you. So this is about 65 hectares, could accommodate about 1,625 dwellings, consists of large fields and countryside, as partly with an area being identified as having low landscape capacity. The site is generally isolated and away from the main town of Braintree, but the site is the next site we will be considering is adjacent to it, which is 2291. The site is parts of the site are along the River Brainard, flood zones 2 and 3 as well. It's going to be seen from that map. The site also has a power line going through the middle of it, as well as some other cabling. The site is to the south of Slystead, which has conservation area as well as numerous other heritage assets. Sustainable travel options are potentially poor, and the site would not be able to provide the level of development necessary to provide a standalone settlement, and would need to be considered in combination with another adjacent site. However, the recommendation 19 is to not allocate the site as per on page 66. Thank you.
Right. Anybody? Comments? Or would anybody just want to move?
Move officer's recommendation, Chairman.
It's about Councillor Bowles. Are you seconding? Yes. So it's moved and seconded. We don't allocate that site. Show of hands, please. Thank you, members. Last one, 2291, land at Jenkins Farm, which is for a lot of housing. I've lost it at the moment. Anyway, Alan, you can...
I'll do that. So, land at Jenkins Farm, this is 183 hectares, could potentially accommodate between 3,000 and 3,875 homes. Site is east of Braintree, north of the A120 and A131 junction, with the Kings Lane junction at the bottom. Extends north towards Linehall Road. It is an irregular shaped site, wouldn't be a particularly natural extension to development in Braintree. It's currently in agricultural use, and there are areas of flood risk as well as TPO protected areas as well. Obviously, Braintree is the main town, but Slystead, which is the closer village, is actually a third-tier village. So relevant constraints are listed at para 3.455 of the report. Slystead is currently working on a neighbourhood plan, and they will be shortly starting Regulation 16 consultation, so they have submitted it to the council. We're expecting that to start shortly. The parish council have objected to the site. Although the site is close to Braintree, it's separated by the A131 and countryside. The local road network is not considered suitable. Character of the landscape is generally low to medium, low capacity. The site has a number of sensitive features of historic interest, and considering the scale of development and the potential for landscape harm, it's not proposed to allocate the site as per recommendation 20 on page 70. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an interesting shape. Councillor Bowes-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it is an interesting shape. And I do believe that on parts of this land, planning has been applied for before and been refused.
This is the first time I've seen it come through the local plan process. I've not come across it either in the previous 2 local plans. There may have been some areas which people have applied for, parcels that have been applied for permission, but nothing extant in terms of any kind of residential permission.
I move us as a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes-Flint. Seconder, please. Councillor Coleridge, and show of hands, please. Thank you, members. That's unanimous. Right, that finishes item 5. We move on to item 6. I think we've got a little bit of a roundup and some possibly colourful slides from Alan?
This time.
Oh, one. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, just the one. It's oh, hang on. There we go. Fantastic. It's only one graph this time. As I mentioned at the previous meeting, I'll just recap it here for members that the MPPF requires us to identify specific sites within 5 years following the intended adoption of a plan, and where possible to identify specific developable sites or broad locations of growth for the subsequent 6 to 10 years, and where possible from 11 to 15 years of the remaining plan period. So looking at the current commitments we have, we're looking at an annual average delivery rate of 1,172 houses over the course of the plan. Obviously, the 10% requirement takes us up to 1,264. In the first 5 years of the plan, we do have a net surplus of 119 units. Years 5 to 10, we have a surplus of 297 units. However, by years 10 to 15, we are in deficit by 1,794 homes, meaning the overall shortfall for the trajectory will be 1,319 homes. So those figures are caveated on the basis that they include east of Braintree as well. So we haven't, obviously, the decision's not been made on that site yet. So those figures could change or stay the same or change depending on what decision members decide to
if
make.
east of Braintree is not allocated,
It'll get worse. Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, just to be clear. Okay, okay.
Sorry, it is 1,379.
What did I say?
19.
Oh, sorry.
You lost at 60 houses, that was.
Sorry.
Right, okay. Right. Councillor Cunningham, sorry.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you to Alan for that, which is very, very helpful. And obviously tonight we have provisionally allocated 5,000, and I imagine probably officers are feeling a little bit more comfortable than they were probably when we about 9:30 last Wednesday. But I'm also mindful that we approved that for allocation, on the condition that there's actually some pretty useful traffic modelling, and there's some potential for the mitigations with the A12. I'm just very, very mindful that we have got East of Braintree coming back in 2 weeks' time, and I think we need to see a little bit more and get a lot more comfort than we had last Wednesday evening on that. I'm sensing. So if we don't get the comfort that we want, either on East of Braintree when we debate it next week, or indeed on Kings Dean, as we go further through the Reg 18 and 18.9 process, it may well be that we have to look at some of these. So things that may have seemed pie in the sky, or perhaps not out of reach at the moment, suddenly may come back into vision quite quickly. So I'm just putting that out there as a note of caution, because obviously a big step forward tonight, but obviously a long way to go, and it's all still really rather very provisional, because we have to be sure when we put this plan to the inspector that we can have confidence in its depth, in terms of the quality of the sites and the mitigations and the provisions for infrastructure. Otherwise, this whole painstaking process is a waste of time. So, a good step forward, but I think potentially a long way to go, and we can't rule out having a look at other sites that may not have seemed so positive at the start of this evening or at the start of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. That pretty well sums up what I've said several times. We also deferred, of course, tonight, Coggeshall 2087, which was potentially 600 dwellings, which I think, again, potentially on highways grounds, so there is that one. But yes, it's still very precarious, I would say. Right, okay. Any other comments? No? Anybody? All right. In that case, we have no other business on the agenda, so I'll close the meeting at about 9 minutes past. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, officers. It's been quite a long meeting. Again, very intense. Thank you.